Jenna's on the e-board for FemFest, which is USC's female-led and centered music festival.
And it honestly made me step back and be like, wow, I did not even think about the fact that FemFest is literally a utopia. And it's a 700-person theater, so I was like, why do I feel like Adele cannot probably come anymore?
We actually went to Renaissance tour together. Seeing all these shows about high school students is really insane.
She was saying there's no women in these foundational marketing roles behind the scenes, but women control the market.
Hi, welcome to Virgin Alert, where we talk all things pop culture, movies, music, strictly through the female lens. As we know, women are often seen in media a lot of the time as sexual objects and exploited in manners that we don't feel represent authenticity. So today we're going to talk about that, and we're joined by Jenna Sally.
Hey, this is the biggest moment of my whole career. I'm so excited to be here on Virgin Alert. When I heard about this podcast, I was like, that's so Sarah, because our host, Miss Sarah Belanta, is always pushing the boundaries, and I'm very excited to dive in on what we have here today on Virgin Alert.
Yes. So let's first start off with your work on FemFest. Jenna's on the e-board for FemFest, which is USC's female-led and centered music festival that's going to happen at the end of the month. So you've been working on it for the past year. So let's talk about why it's important to throw this festival and kind of your experience as a woman wanting to break into the music industry.
Yeah, so FemFest is the first large music festival that I've ever worked on. And I was in one of my music industry classes a couple weeks ago, and we had a representative from something called Gritty in Pink, which is a initiative that is started by these women in music, and it's a website where you can basically go on and find if you need a set designer, lighting designers, PAs, guitarists, anything for music behind the scenes or on the stage. You can go on that website and you can find a female identifying person to fill that role. And she was talking about why that was really important for her to make and why she felt empowered to do that. And it was because she was constantly the only woman in the room in all of these music settings. And it honestly made me step back and be like, wow, I did not even think about the fact that FemFest is literally a utopia, because I've been in FemFest, as she said, for the past year. We've been planning it so intensively. It's less than 2 weeks away, which is unbelievable. March 30th in Founders Park. It's going to be epic. I don't know. I mean, be there or be square, honestly. But
yes. So how's it been finding the artists and selecting them, and how is it scouting the artists, and how big are they usually? How do you guys go about that with so many different music tastes going on? How do you guys want to represent different communities while composing the set list? And
so FemFest artist lineup has not yet been announced. So if I announce the artist right now, I'm going to be carried away by the FemFest generals. The SWAT team is going to come pounding on the door. So unfortunately, I cannot say who's headlining this year. But what we like to say at FemFest is we're not only uplifting women identifying people in the music industry, but it's all marginalized voices. And there's even been conversation around how inclusive even is the title of FemFest, because we want, if you're a non-femme presenting person, individual, we want to uplift everyone. But just examples of who we had last year, our headliner was Chapel Roan, who's now touring with Olivia Rodrigo, and she is fierce.
Really?
Yeah, she's amazing. I actually just saw her.
Did you see her when you went to the Olivia Rodrigo concert in Palm Springs?
She was amazing. I was almost as excited to see her as I was Olivia. But she's so cool. At all of her shows, she brings out, not the ones that she's doing with Olivia Rodrigo, maybe the demographic is a little too young, but all of her personal headline shows, she brings out drag queens from the local area. She's a queer artist. She's also from the Midwest. She's from Missouri. And is her first album was called Midwest Princess, and that's a lot of what she does. And what she talks about a lot is how we don't hear representation from the queer communities and, marginalized communities in the places like the Midwest, the South. I feel a lot of times people look over that or don't think about all of the activism and all the kind of stuff that's happening in those places, and people kind of see them as a one note, just like maybe conservative areas, and like that's not really true. And I think she talks about a lot of times how all the culture in the Midwest, the South, you know, smaller states that are not like New York or California is really overlooked. Love Chapel Roan. Honestly, how we picked artists this year is we literally went through a Google spreadsheet and we would go, yay or nay.
Yes.
What I really love about FemFest is we try to uplift not only like women in music, but you know, people of color, non-binary people, everyone. So, and it's also free to attend. So we try to make it intersectional at every turn, so you don't have to pay to come. And it's really good access to live music for everyone. Will you be there on March 30th?
I will be sad. I will be there. I will be in attendance, and I'll be front row.
Yeah.
But talking about like Chapel Roan and how it like diversifies the ideas of people like from the Midwest and the South, it kind of makes me think of like artists and female artists as a whole, just like portraying different stories and the importance of that, and like resonating with that. And it makes me think of like different like marketing campaigns even female artists have done, and it's why they've been so successful, like Olivia Rodrigo.
Oh yeah, Olivia Rodrigo was just giving out Plan B at her shows for
really
free. And at all of her show stops, she's raising money for abortion funds. She tables for like reproductive health information. Love that girl. She's using her voice for good. And yeah, they were literally giving out Plan B like candy at.
No, yeah, that's super nice because I remember we also talked about like for Olivia Rodrigo, like, oh yeah, she had like, it was a crumble cookie, not an insomnia cookie, but she did crumble cookie. She did like the headphone ad. And so specifically like for music, when you're listening to like female artists, can you talk about some that you feel like empower you, just like really relate to you? And
yeah. Well, I always talk about my Spotify Wrapped is usually at least 95% female artists, and I hope to get that number to 100% one day. I work every year to get that number to 100%, just because I just relate to it so much more, and that's my orbital, that's my universe. One artist who I literally saw last night, I saw Rachel Chinoriri.
When?
Last night.
Did we not go to Pazuki
amazing.
Tuesday last night? We were literally at BJ's. Oh no, it's
Last
Thursday.
Night, yesterday was Wednesday.
Oh.
Get with it. She was fantastic. She is an artist from London.
Wait, where was the show?
It was at the Echoplex in Echo Park. But the mystery of the night is, I don't know if anyone's an Adele fan, but a few weeks ago at an Adele show, she was like, I just bought tickets to see Rachel Chinoriri at
Adele
LA.
said this?
Yeah, and it's a 700-person theater, so I was like, why do I feel like Adele cannot probably come anymore? Because you can't just pull up to a 700-person show if you're Adele. I don't think she was there. Her security team was probably like, your privilege just got taken away. But anyways, I saw her. She was fantastic. And also the environment that she created. She's from the UK, as I mentioned. She's a woman of color. She's gorgeous.
What kind of music is it? Like what genre?
We would love it. It's kind of like pop rock, alt rock, just like something fun for the girls to dance
something
to.
fun.
But the crowd was so fun, and it was like people from all different age ranges, different backgrounds, and like everyone was so into it, and like literally we shook the floor, we shook the building, we broke the floor. It was so fun. So I have to say her first. But yeah, I love Chapel Roan recently. She's so good. And she's really like, I feel like redefining the pop landscape. Like she kind of reminds me of like a Lady Gaga, where she's just totally doing her own thing, and all of her songs like are about other women, which I feel like you don't see that much in the mainstream pop landscape. But she's doing her own thing completely. I'm trying to think who else. Oh, and Caroline Polachek. She's my number one girl.
Yes.
She creates a new genre. What about you?
Me? Well, I'm so excited. We're seeing Amare in April, which is going to be so good. I was just talking to
my sister about that. That is going to be a community healing event.
Yeah.
Because I know so many people that are going.
She
too.
does like Afrobeats, pop, like
Yes.
it's gonna be really good. Another female artist I love, Raven Lene. She's
Of course.
amazing.
Of
She
course.
sounds like an angel. She's just like so healing to hear. And who else? Like I feel like oh, Solange. Solange is one of my favorite artists of
Solange has
all
been having
time.
her moment with us
Ye-
recently.
yes.
She's
Well, she
been
hasn't come
doing
out with an album since like
since
since 20
forever, 2016.
it's been about 5 years. Don't know when the last album came
I
out.
was probably in middle school when she came out with
No,
her last
literally,
album.
like I don't remember when the last album came out, but I'm ready. And then Lord
Of course.
recently, well, we've been on this train of debating if Blood Orange is gonna produce Lord's next album, which
Yeah.
we're it's gonna happen.
But especially with Lord, I think Olivia Rodrigo said this about Lord because she's a big Lord fan, and I was like, no, that's completely what it is about her. Is she said when she heard like Lord Pure Heroine in her first albums, like that first album, she was talking about just like high school drama and like the struggles of like she
Yeah,
was 15 writing some of those
that's
songs, and
crazy.
she made it feel like it mattered. Like it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
trivial on that album. It wasn't like sassy or throwaway pop. Like it was like
Yeah.
serious
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and I feel like that's why it related to so many women so much is
Yeah.
because like it takes, you know, the trials and tribulations of being 15 so seriously, and like
Yeah.
it makes it such a delicate beautiful story, and I still relate to it. I'm
No,
20 now,
yeah.
and like,
And she like at the time she was even producing for the Catching Fire soundtrack.
oh my gosh, she
Insane.
produced that whole thing
She produced that
herself.
when she was like, was she still a teenager when she did that?
Yeah, she must have
It was
been.
literally 2013.
Yeah, and I remember the version of "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" that she did for the album. It was the first version I'd ever heard, and I remember when I heard the "Tears for Fears" one, I was like, "What is this cover of the Lord song?"
No, yeah. But speaking of Lord and like specifically with music, what I think is interesting in terms of like female representation, like she's putting out like this content and music while she's of that age. And so what I wanted to talk about for TV is like when like going back to the name Virgin Alert, like when we see a lot of representations of women on screen rather than music at that age, it's usually made by people, written by people not of that age, like not
Yeah.
from that demographic. So it's like such a completely different way to relate to like a piece of media. So I kind of wanted to dive into that and how like even seeing those representations kind of like manifests into like your lives when you see that on screen, because I always think it's so interesting like seeing all these shows about like high school students is really insane. It's really crazy to see, and it just feels kind of really weird
Yeah.
just to think like, ooh, like grown people are really producing this or like
Yeah.
writing this and like shooting this, and it's like about, but like it's kind of like balancing that with people like knowing that it's supposed to like represent when people are going through hard times and stuff, but like I don't know, the balance of that is interesting.
Yeah,
What do you think?
well, the great mystery of my life is why there's no movies or television shows about people in college.
Literally, I can only think of Dear White People and Sex Lives with College Girls.
Which changed lives, by the way, because it was like what I wanted to watch at that age because I felt like I related to it more. But I do think that there's kind of like a weirdness with, I don't know, like all of these like very sexual narratives, and you know, not to say I haven't watched like the shows about people in high school. Like I was streaming like,
Skins.
yeah, and I was watching the OC too. Like I get it, but it is interesting to think about why is it that all of these narratives about sexuality and like these very adult themes are being portrayed with people who are like supposed to be minors. Usually the actors are like 27, but like
Yeah.
supposed to be minors versus those college narratives. Like I really can't think of anything that's about
There's no
college.
I can't think of even any movies in college like.
Yeah, and honestly, being as someone who's in college now, and obviously I went to high school, I think college is such a more interesting time
Yeah.
in everyone's life. Like, I don't think anyone looks back on high school as much as they do their college, if they did go to college, like, as high school being like the most pivotal time.
Yeah, it's just weird. And like I try to think like the shows that I do like that are about college. Not college, high school. I'm thinking of just like I've been telling you to watch Heartbreak High. It's an Australian show.
True.
Also a good thing. Like I feel like
I watched like
media
half
that
of it.
Australian um shows in the UK, they do it so much better. Like Sex Education. Sex Education is about high
Yeah.
schoolers, but it's just done like when you compare it to Euphoria, it's so much better. And I
Yeah.
love Heartbreak High too.
And I think in sex education, like all of the storylines of all the characters are very in depth and feel meaningful rather
Yeah.
than just like throwaway. Like I feel like you see people grappling with more like real stuff, especially I have not watched all of Sex Education, but I remember in the first
Hmm.
season like Maeve was a very like you knew all about her home life and everything and same thing with Eric's best friend.
Hmm.
I forget his name, but they all have an arc that is relatable,
Yeah.
whether or not, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. But yeah, and like looking past in like the past year, which was it, we talked about this. It was like a renaissance for women in a way. Not only making media, but also like Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Barbie, all these things that came out that were so successful. Like they drove the economy up so much, even in just like places where concerts took place or in
Mhm.
box office sales. So yeah, kind of like diving into that. We actually went to Renaissance tour together. We saw
Best
that.
day
It was
ever.
pretty amazing.
It was standing room only for us because we did have to stand and loiter because we were sitting behind the stage.
We
But
were literally sitting in the clouds, like where the helicopters passed by. We were in row, the last
budget cuts were
section.
really serious that year, but we still made it to the event.
But we were still there.
Yeah.
But like what do you think of like the importance of like I don't know, I feel like I think of the biggest movies and the biggest artists that toured last year were women,
Hmm.
which is really interesting. But like what were your thoughts on that, I guess, because you went to both Renaissance and Eras tour
Yes, I
and you
did.
saw Barbie, but like I don't know.
I mean, something else that I kind of took away from the meeting that we had with the woman from Gritty and Pink in my music industry class, which I kind of knew this anyways, but like she was saying there's no women in these foundational, marketing roles behind the scenes. It's these rooms full of men, but women control the market. Like
Hmm.
women are the people that are primarily consuming the music and the movies and the TV shows. So you're making music and movies for women basically, but
Hmm.
it's not women behind the scenes that are controlling that. And I think, obviously Barbie directed by a woman, and I think what is unique about people like Taylor Swift and how she's been able to keep up her success for so long is, similarly to Lorde, she takes women's emotions and women's lives and women's troubles very seriously in her music, and she's never backed down from that, even after getting a lot of criticism and people basically just calling her stupid for like 10 years. She has
Hmm.
not backed down from like letting herself be emotional and just being real. And I feel like growing up listening to Taylor Swift, I felt like she was someone that I could relate to. And I think it's come to a moment where obviously she's researched in popularity so much. It's come to a moment where people are finally, not finally, but the mass public is getting that and how
Hmm.
valuable that is. So yeah, last year was definitely a huge year for women in music. And I think same thing with people like Olivia Rodrigo. I feel like Beyonce, while she does have songs that are like very emotional, I feel like she like transcends, like she's just like the entertainer of the world. Like she is
Yeah.
just the most multifaceted
Hmm.
entertainer, dancer, choreographer, producer.
Yes,
She's
I
a
agree.
powerhouse.
Yeah. And kind of like looking into the future, I feel like what I also notice is that multi hyphenate women are also the ones like making a lot of difference because what you said is like behind the scenes. So like a lot of my favorite things like Fleabag, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, written, directed, produced, starred,
Hmm.
Michaela Cole, written, directed, produced, starred. Even like Mindy Kaling, I know can be more problematic, but she like writes, produced, stars. I think it's all really amazing. So like, what are some things that you hope to see in the future of media for women?
Yeah, I mean, so much. I think a lot. of what we're still looking at is the intersectionality aspect. I know you could probably speak to that a lot too, but it's like a lot of the women who are like doing such amazing work. It's not that it's a bad thing, but obviously it's a lot of white women, a lot of like women from privileged backgrounds, women from the US and the UK, like looking for those voices of people who are from different places, different backgrounds. I think that is also like so important. Like Michaela Cole, love her. Also, like we saw Bottoms together. It was the best thing
Yeah,
ever.
that was so
And
good.
Emma Seligman, who is the writer director, was talking about how like she wanted to basically make a movie for queer girls, like that what like But I'm a Cheerleader did for queer girls 20 years ago. So I think that's what I'm looking for. Like I'm looking for different perspectives. I feel like I get so excited when I see, things that are not typical or not kind of like that a little bit more heteronormative that we love as well. But I think those type of representations get me really hyped.
For sure.
What about you?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like the intersectionality, what you said, like I'm super interested in like cross-cultural like communications and like content acquisition and like different countries. 'Cause like I feel like foreign films or international films, like they're just so good. They bring like a different like I don't know, emotionality or just like a different relatability to stories, but definitely that. And so, yeah, I agree, but thank you so much for coming on the show. It
Oh my
was so nice to
gosh.
hear your thoughts and learn
Virgin
more
Alert
about.
Nation, it was a
Yes,
pleasure.
it was so nice to hear all the thoughts behind FemFest and see what we're looking for in the future. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Virgin Alert.